Earlier this year, Tourmaline Oil announced an exciting new development in the world of natural gas. Tourmaline and Clean Energy announced a $70 million joint development agreement to build and operate a network of compressed natural gas stations along several highway corridors in Western Canada. Tourmaline and Clean Energy expect to construct and commission up to 20 CNG stations over the next 5 years, which, according to them, will allow heavy-duty trucks and other commercial and transportation fleets that operate in the area to transition to CNG, which is a lower carbon alternative to gas and diesel. Joining us now to discuss the announcement and what it means for emissions reductions is Andrew Evans, engineer with Tourmaline Oil. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us on Forum Daily.
Nice to meet you.
So in the announcement about this project, your company highlighted that the transition from CNG or to CNG from gas or diesel is better from an emission standpoint. Can you give us an idea on the size and scope or difference between those two energy sources?
Yeah, no, for sure. So straight off the hop, like the transportation industry, the entire industry in Canada makes up about 25% of Canada's total emissions.
Mm-hmm.
Of that, heavy-duty transportation, what we are targeting is about 20% of that. And by enabling CNG to be the fuel of choice, right off the hop, you get a 20% reduction in your carbon, and then you get a whole host of other environmental benefits as well. Carbon monoxide and nitrous oxides, that's about 90% less. We've almost eliminated all the sulfur oxides as well, and particulate matter. So eliminates almost all of that as well.
And what's the, I guess, you've alluded to it in terms of heavy duty trucks and the proportion of emissions. Is that why this is the focal point to start in terms of the use of CNG?
Yeah. So we want to do things that are really focused in on our operations. We use hundreds, if not thousands, of trucks on a daily basis. And the trucks themselves, like different from passenger vehicles, they're more a tool for a job. So it's like a competitive market. What we need is these trucking companies, they make a business decision, and unlike consumers, which aren't really totally concerned with the entire cost of ownership, we're focused on trucking companies where fuel impacts their bottom line.
Yeah.
And with CNG, you can get up to half the fuel price savings that you would compared to diesel.
Yeah, and I assume depending on the trucks we're talking about, there would be spillover savings if there are finished goods along the supply chain there, maybe some of those savings passed on to consumers. On the specifics of these trucks, are we looking at retrofitting existing trucks? Can you give us or give our viewers maybe a little bit of education on what it takes to operate a truck off of CNG?
Yeah, so there are kind of two different pathways you can do. You can retrofit your existing diesel truck. It's a little more complicated. You do need different tanks. You need a compressed natural gas cylinder to hold this, so it takes up a little bit more room on your truck. That's if you're retrofitting it. What's really exciting now is that the technology is now available that you can run these exact same trucks on 100% natural gas, but you need a specific engine in order to do so.
Yeah.
Clement has come out recently with a 15-liter engine that's able to develop the power that's needed to really operate in all environments across Canada. And that's really what we're gearing up for, is the announcement of this 15-liter being available sometime early in Q1 of the upcoming year here.
Very interesting. We have about 45 seconds or so. Is some of the demand in, let's say, the heavy trucking industry, maybe why we're seeing a focus or a shift to CNG over straight electric, like what we see in passenger vehicles?
Yeah, so with electric vehicles, they have their purpose and they have their place. What we're really trying to get after is trucks that operate over long distances. They consume a lot of energy,
Hmm.
and the way that electricity is currently, there just isn't enough power stored in the batteries to make it that distance that's required.
Like
So
a payload problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right.
Batteries are also heavy, so it ends up taking up a little bit more room. So.
We're back with Andrew Evans from Tourmaline Oil. And Andrew, we're talking about CNG stations for trucking. Your partnership has announced the potential for 20 or so CNG stations. When do you expect those to be operational?
So the very first station we have, Edmonton, actually is operational. So you can go there, swipe your credit card, you can fill up right now.
Hmm.
The next sort of key areas, Grand Prairie, Calgary, and Kamloops, they're sometime in the second half of 2024. And we provided a nice little map outlaying where we're going to be going to next, spreading into Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And it's announced over the next 5 years, but we hope to have them operational well before that.
Hmm. And I mean, let's say for what you mentioned in Edmonton, do you have any estimate on the volume of trucks that are running through that station, and any idea in terms of the emission savings as a result?
Emission savings to date, only several hundred tons of emission savings, and there's several dozen trucks that are filling up per week right now.
Hmm.
But this is really just in its infancy, and
Yeah.
the growth ramp up is really starting next year. So excited to see it.
And then in that growth, obviously you've started in Western Canada. I can assume that there are geographic and industry related reasons why that would be the starting point. But is there expansion beyond Western Canada? Because naturally, trucking in every sense is cross country.
Yeah, absolutely. Our joint development agreement is just focused on Western Canada for now. So
Hmm.
we want to build this network and get something that works for truckers, listen to their feedback, and through their engagement, we'll be deciding where to go next.
Very exciting. What about other applications here in the CNG space? I mean, we're talking about trucking, but we can assume anything else that would have um, higher payloads or require that type of power could be a candidate for using CNG. Is that the case, or are there logistical issues in terms of why we couldn't use, let's say, this energy source for things like airplanes or other modes of transportation?
Yeah, there is. Natural gas obviously is used for a whole host of things,
Hmm.
remote power generation being one of them that may or may not play into what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Really, what we're focused on right now is just getting the success and the adoption within the transportation market, and then we'll see where we go after that.
Hmm. Is there any backlash or pushback in regards to CNG? There obviously is a political climate these days where natural resource development is frowned upon from an emissions standpoint. Has there been any pushback on your announcement or this project, or have people viewed it as another resource project and expansion in terms of emissions?
Well, this is really just the first step. I think there's a lot of aspirational targets out there talking about getting to a net zero.
Hmm.
Um, I won't comment too much on that, but this is the one fuel that if you adopt what is called RNG, or renewable natural gas,
Yeah.
it actually has a negative carbon impact, and you could be net zero today if you
And
really wanted.
how does it have a negative carbon impact?
Well, what RNG essentially is they take methane that's already escaping to the atmosphere through lots of different things. The
Hmm.
main two being what's coming out of our landfills and the agricultural industries. So mostly dairy farms. And there hasn't really been a need to capture that, but if you do, it gets recognized as being a negative carbon
Yeah.
source and connect it up to the pipeline network and fuel it into your truck. The math works out to net zero.
So essentially capturing waste in a specific sense and turning that into energy. Is that correct? That's a fair assessment?
Yep. Yeah, you betcha.
Okay, great. Well, it has been a pleasure, Andrew, having you on Forum Daily. Very much appreciate you talking about this issue and the exciting developments for how we can reduce emissions in an industry that is obviously looking for solutions.
Great to be on here.